Hey everybody, For Tankers and Dog here. Time for a new Tanking with Science. We're going to talk all about experimental equipment because you guys have been asking, what the heck is it? Should I even use it? What's going on? I've ignored it for the last year since it came out. Absolutely ignored it. You know, I don't play and grind a huge amount, so I don't even have a whole lot of improved or bounty equipment. I'm not that kind of sweaty, try-hard, playing all the time. I have a real job, especially the last couple of years, the last 5 years or so. It's been, having time to play tanks has been challenging. And now there's a fourth type of equipment that mashes up like multiple pieces together into single units that are upgradable as well. Like, WTF. The term I like to use for this is over-gamification. Like every little piece of the game needs to be its own little sub-game you have to figure out. Anyway, for you, I have gone through and figured out and done a bunch of testing on experimental equipment because Holiday Ops is going to start this Friday. Today is Tuesday. This Friday, Holiday Ops starts on December 1st, 2023. And, you know, in the token game machine, which is the kind of the ultimate place you spend all your resources and everything at the end of everything, there's no longer like get a free tank, a free special tier 9 tank, which was shitty anyway last year. This time, the big thing is experimental equipment. You can get experimental equipment. You can get components that allows you to upgrade experimental equipment. That's the big thing they're trying to push. Like, again, I've successfully ignored this completely for the past year, but you guys have been asking, and it's definitely the apex of things for the Holiday Ops season. So let's get into it. Now, there are three types of experimental equipment. You don't see one of them here because actually I sold it to go actually be able to upgrade the Mobility Improvement System T2 you see there. Anyway, there are three types. Mobility Improvement System, which essentially is a turbo plus some IRM, right? Improved rotation mechanism. So it's like a turbo. It gives you better performance, top speed, horsepower, but also it actually decreases your dispersion values and also increases your hull rotation and turret rotation values. So kind of a combination of those two things. The fire control system is like a combination also of an IRM and a GLD. So if you fully upgrade it, it's literally almost like identical of those two pieces of equipment together, almost. And unupgraded, it's somewhat less than that, but you get both if you want both for some reason. And then also there is the Survival Improvement Suite, which is a combination of my two least favorite heavy tank items. Personally, I love to take a spall liner in a heavy tank because there's so often there's some arty that just wants to shit all over me if I'm a slow heavy tank. But that being said, it's a combination of modified configuration and improved hardening. I'm not going to talk about that anymore in this video. It's a combo of those two things. Try it out if you like those things. I find it kind of lame. I sold it to go ahead and get some extra components so I could do some upgrades and remountings and do testing for you all. So the way you can kind of think about it is you have a turbo that you can put on things, which gives you some extra gun handling, at least in theory. And then you also have a GLD, but how often do you really use a GLD with some extra IRM-ness, but not like a full V-stab. It's not, you know, 20+% dispersion improvement. A full top T3 level is 11%. So it really is kind of IRM level. But you can't mount it on a tank destroyer. You can mount an IRM on a tank destroyer or a GLD, but not a fire control system T3. So the utility of the fire control system T3 is somewhat suspect because, I mean, would you run that or just a V-stab, right? Or if you have like a purple V-stab, right? If you get an improved V-stab, that should be even better. How do those two balance against each other? And also the turbo, right, for vehicles where you run turbos, like, for instance, in the background here, you can see my Bat Chat, right? If I've got a turbo in my Bat Chat, and the Bat Chat has horrible gun handling, or also, as an example, my Barask at Tier 8. If you've got a vehicle highly mobile, that doesn't even matter if it's highly mobile or not. If you have a vehicle you run a turbo on routinely, and it could use some better gun handling, well, would you want to take off a turbo and slap on the Mobility Improvement System? I did a whole bunch of testing in the training room to try all this out. Let me describe how I did this. Basically, I would have a target in the distance. I would align my hull straight with that target. I would then look and see when my hull was exactly sideways down in the bottom left and rotate my turret 90 degrees off. Lock it there, turn back to the target, and then auto-aim on the target. So I'm testing how long it takes for the turret to rotate 90 degrees and then for the aiming circle to fully aim in, right? So we are testing, part of it is how quickly the turret rotates. So things like an IRM, I don't know if you know this, but so IRMs don't really help aiming speed that much because essentially the improvement from the dispersion values counteracts the faster turret rotation. Because when your turret rotates faster, the bloom is bigger. So that bloom then gets reduced kind of back to normal. And as that rotates back to where the target is and then starts zooming in, if you just time it from a fully bloom down to fully aimed in, it actually won't be that different as you might think. Kind of funny, kind of odd the way an IRM works that way. And several of these components are IRM-like. So how do they actually work? Let's just jump on to a huge freaking spreadsheet. Okay, so we're doing this testing with my BatChat 25T. And the reason why I'm using that is because it's a fairly fast. I put a turbo on it. It's got bad gun handling. It's been kind of power creeped. It's like literally, we'll go back and double check in a second, but I think it's literally the vehicle I have played most ever, period. Like 1,000 battles or maybe more. But it's been kind of power creeped. It's kind of been forgotten. It's kind of out of the meta. And so if I got some newfangled cheater equipment, maybe I can bring my BatChat 25T back to life and make it fun. You could do different things, right? As always, you can try to use anything that's beneficial to make something mediocre good again, or you could go and grab your highest win rate, most awesome vehicle, and make it even better. Kind of up to you how you want to use it. My thinking was, I love my BatChat 25T. Let's see if I can spruce it up a little bit. So again, we're testing 90-degree rotation and then zooming in all the way to fully aimed. With no equipment, this takes 6.7 seconds on my BatChat 25T with my good crew. I mean, it's a tier 10 medium tank. You really should probably have BIA and Snapshot and Smooth Ride and anything else in the crew skills that might affect this. I also have some miscellaneous assortment of field mods. Think about these numbers as relative. They may not be exact because I might have a field mod that changes things. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Calm down. With no equipment, it takes 6.7 seconds. We throw on vents. It still takes 6.7 seconds. Actually, 6.667. It was like a DD, like when I'm recording this stuff, I'm recording it at 60 FPS. So, maybe it's like 1 frame difference. It's probably within the margin of error. So, anyway, people love vents and food and that kind of stuff. And I say it all the time. You got to realize that the plus 5% crew skill nets out to about a plus 2.5, maybe 3% improvement in kind of anything your crew does. And really that amounts to about nothing. Sure, you can add a bunch of things up, but it's not like it multiplies together, right? If you've got 5% for the food, and 5% for the vents, and 5% for the BIA, and 10% for food, that doesn't add up to 30%. It only adds up to 20%. 15% provides 25% less of that whole amount. It's basic math. You don't have to take them all together. Maybe you have to take them all together to feel the difference, but that's because it doesn't do very much. Anyway, moving on. The IRM, Improved Rotational Mechanism, which is a negative 10% to dispersion and plus 10% to traverse. That brings us down just by 1/10 of a second. That is all. GLD, just a straight 10% improvement in aiming speed. That brings us down to 6.4. Always remember, of course, a GLD does not basically do much of anything when you are in motion. So that is one of the trade-offs. If you're a sniper in a bush and you just want to rotate and snapshot on something, GLD is going to be best. VSTAB, however, is when in motion. VSTAB is going to just decrease the size of the bloom, so then you're aiming in much less. With the VSTAB, we go down to 6.1 seconds. Easy peasy. Right? Again, it's not improving the rotation at all, but it's basically when you get on target, your bloom is smaller, and therefore your aiming speed goes in much faster by 10% or so, which is pretty impressive. The improved gun laying drive, which is a 13.5% increase in aiming speed, that brings us down to 6.2. The improved V-stab brings us down to 5.9. That is a 27.5% increase in dispersion. One of the things I've noticed, by the way, is that when you get your dispersion values crazy high, it feels like there's somewhat a loss of returns at some point. It's a decreasing amount of returns the higher and higher you go. And so I would suggest sometimes it's not the best necessarily to just pile on as much dispersion reduction as you can. Balance it a bit. Do some aim time reduction, and I think you'll see better results. But we'll get more testing on that down below. Now, the MIS, the Mobility Improvement System, Level 1. There are 3 levels. That is a 4% decrease in dispersion and a 4% increase in traverse. And what does that give us? It takes us back to 6.7, all the way back up to the no equipment level. It basically nothing. In fact, slightly, maybe in the margin of error, but slightly worse than the IRM. Interesting. Interesting, isn't it? Let's switch over to the Fire Control System Level 1, plus 6% aiming speed and 7% dispersion improvement. Well, that takes us down to 6.3. That's pretty good. That's well, better than a GLD, almost as good as improved GLD, not as good as a V-stab, but pretty damn good, 6.3. Now, a Fire Control System Level 3 with a 9% improvement in aiming speed, 11% dispersion, that takes us to 6 seconds. Almost as good, but not as a purple V-stab, right? 5.9 versus 6.0. And remember, a V-stab will help you when you're in motion, whereas the aiming speed portion of the SCS will not. So the improved V-stab is definitely better all around. So then I got to thinking, you know, the FCS Level 3 is basically the same as a GLD and an IRM, right? A GLD is 10% aiming speed versus 9%. The IRM is 10% dispersion improvement versus 11%, but it also has improved traverse, which allows the turret to rotate faster than 90 degrees. So how does just a classic GLD and IRM compare, so using 2 slots now, compare to the FCS Level 3? GLD and IRM clocks in at 6.2 seconds. Interesting. That's basically the same as an improved GLD. It is slightly better, 0.2 seconds better than just a GLD. So it kind of stacks as you'd expect, but an FCS Level 3 is better than both of those. But again, I have some vehicles where I use a GLD and IRM, like some tank destroyers, with horrifying dispersion and gun accuracy issues, like the Giggle Barn, the 4005. But I can't run an FCS because they don't allow that. All right. So taking all this information and kind of digesting it for a bit, what I kind of thought is, well, let me glue everything together and make my bat chat awesome and see how that compares. So I actually upgraded my mobility improvement system to Level 2, used the FCS Level 3 and an improved V-stab and a V-stab directive and food. And that clocked in at 5 seconds. 5 seconds. Pretty damn nice. And you can feel that kind of difference. That's a lot. It's pretty cool. Although I can definitely feel the MIS Level 2 isn't quite what a turbo is. It really isn't. You can kind of feel the difference. And then, for fun, right, I wanted to try, again, my point a minute ago about having super huge amounts of V-stab dispersion reduction. How does that compare to actually improving the aim time a little bit? So actually I swapped over to a GLD directive. And you can run a GLD directive because that plays off of the FCS, I believe. It actually dropped to 4.95. It actually improved slightly, but honestly only slightly. And again, I don't know. It kind of comes back to ultimately the whole question of, sure, this configuration aims in slightly faster if you're in a bush and you just turn and want to aim in and take a shot. But you know, if you want to shoot on the move, all the dispersion improvement is going to be better. So unless it's like significantly better, or it's a vehicle you don't expect to shoot when you're on the move, I mean, it's a medium tank, Batchat 25T. I want to be able to shoot on the move, right? So I still honestly switched back to the V-Stab directive. But then I got to thinking, you know, well, what if we just go back to the old configuration? What if we just go back to standard stuff? Like, what's the improvement? If we take a good old classic turbo and a gun laying drive and a V-Stab and a V-Stab directive and food. And by the way, I don't have to worry about optics or whatever here, because with this configuration, my crew can clock out 450 meters of view power. Not awesome, but good enough. So that brings me to 5.48 seconds. So it's half a second off the try-hard, right? Just classic, normal equipment. I mean, yes, we're adding in food. We're adding in a V-Stab directive. But, you know, it's not that far off. Half a second. What is half a second worth it to you? When you are trying to get the experimental equipment stuff and the components out of that stupid vending machine in the holiday ops, you need to think to yourself very carefully, what is it worth to you to have half a second? And remember, we went all the way up to a level 3 FCS. A level 3, to take a level 1, it takes 400 components to upgrade to a level 2, and then 2,000 components to upgrade to a level 3. And if you look at the benefits provided for those three things, the level 1 is yay much, the level 2 is a little bit more, and then level 3 is like double that. Right? Thank you, Wargaming. Is it really worth it? Think carefully on this, my friends. So then what I did is I went ahead and actually I played a battle, and I got an ace tanker, which was lovely. Just to like give it a feel actually playing with this configuration. And I was able to go ahead and get the next level, level 7, field modification level 7. And I went ahead and selected new aiming gears, which makes the reload for the autoloader take a little longer, 2 seconds longer, which is kind of painful. It would be nice to be 34 seconds instead of 38 seconds. But it again improves gun handling even more. And also level 7 adds even some camo. It's like plus 3% engine power, plus 1% camo. And you hit the 8th level, you get another percent camo improvement just for free. Anyway, so with the new aiming gears topped on there, we dropped down to 4.92 seconds. Booyah! But then I had a thought. My friends. You know how up here, how the MIS-1 seemed to really not help at all? Well, let's go ahead and drop the MIS level 2. Just remove it and see what happens. And it improved by 1/10 of a second. Boom. What the frack? And then I went ahead and put a turbo in, because a turbo does feel better. It's about the same top speed, but it gives you like twice as much horsepower improvement. I think the MIS level 1 or level 2 is something in the order of like 4 or 5%, whereas a real turbo is 10%, right? And it actually dropped by 1/100th of a second. That's probably a rounding error. Yeah, 833 for here. I'll just go ahead and expand this. 817 versus 833. That's like one frame of video or something like that. So A, within the margin of error. B, didn't get any worse. And so I wonder, my friends, this is weird. I kind of suspect that the dispersion improvement from the MIS is like broken. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. The MIS appears to not help gun handling at all. In fact, it can hurt it in some situations. That's really weird. Again, the IRM tends not to do that. The IRM improves it ever so slightly because the dispersion and traverse improvements are balanced. For some reason, the MIS is not balanced. It's bizarre. Maybe a hot take from this whole video is, go ahead and take your mobility improvement systems and your survival improvement suite and just sell them for components and upgrade your fire control systems. Because this looks like shite. Really, really weird. Anyway, let me know in the comments below if you think I'm missing something here. I can't explain it at the moment, and I need to go ahead and wrap up this video and get it published. But that is really weird. So this is where ultimately I settled out on my BatChat 25T. Normal turbo in the first slot with, of course, the bonus. And then also the fire control system level 3 and an improved VSTAB with a VSTAB directive and food, coffee, and a croissant in the consumable slot. And then for what it's worth, I'll just go through my field mods here in case you're curious. I have the light alloy mounting points for improved traverse speeds. I have the improved sight for a decrease in aiming circle size. I know that does technically hurt my dispersion values, but that brings our aiming down reasonably. In an early part of a game in the BatChat 25T, I'm often playing like a mobile tank destroyer. If I charge the front like a light tank, I'm going to die. And the most important thing in a BatChat 25T is stay alive, because the later the game is, the fewer pieces of the board, the more deadly your clip is. The more room there is to maneuver around the battlefield to get people's flanks and blow them out. So really important, be a little bit cautious for the first half of the battle until you start trading hit points. You'll get shot once and drop a clip and delete somebody off the board, and do that 2 or 3 times, and the game will be won. So anyway, I go ahead and do the 0.33 dispersion. I also do the anti-reflective headlight coating for an improvement in concealment, because I do not run a muffler on this vehicle. I do on a lot of my glass cannon medium tanks, not in the BatChat. It's already pretty good, and with some extra improvements, it's not half bad at all. Over here, I have this assigned to scouting ability, although it's kind of moot because none of my equipment can use that at this point. And then also I took the new aiming gears up here for improved aiming speed and a decrease in the aiming circle after firing. That did increase my reload time, unfortunately, to 38.56 seconds. So it goes. For the level 8, what will I do? I will, because I'm taking a full turbo now, I'm up to 24 km/h reverse speed. So I might just go ahead and reduce that to 22 and go ahead and take the view range boost. Getting up to 464, just 450 is really not that awesome. With this setup, I'm at 43% reduction in dispersion when moving or traversing, as well as all sorts of other gun handling improvements, 0.33 accuracy, aim time of 2.11. God, it feels sweet. It is... feels good, my friends. All right, if you appreciate this video, please like, please subscribe. We're just about to hit 100 subscribers on our rebuilding of the channel. Also, most importantly, today, when this video is published, it is Beef Supreme's birthday. So please leave him a note in the comments below, or better yet, go message him online in the North American server and send the old man a happy birthday. I'm sure it'd make his day. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good hunting, and carry hard.